Hi, Kevin Coop here, and this is FaceTime with the Content Guy. I'm coming to you this week from Portland, Oregon, where it is unbelievably spectacular in terms of the weather. But I wasn't here just to enjoy the fact that it's 90 degrees out. I was here to attend and moderate a couple of panels at Portland State University's Center for Retail Excellence Executive Forum, held every year. And this year I moderated two panels, one of which had to do with GMOs, and that's the one I want to talk about today. I have to say that based on the conversation yesterday and various discussions I've had with retailers and manufacturers, I think I have an answer to the whole GMO labeling issue. Now, let's be clear. It's not an answer that's going to make everybody happy. But frankly, when it comes to a contentious issue like GMOs, I think you're only doing your job if everybody's not happy. So, here's my suggestion. First of all, label everything. You label everything. On every packaged good, on the nutrition label, okay, there should be the following words. No GMOs or contains GMOs. Very simple. We can talk about font size and all that sort of thing, but that's basically what it's going to say. There is absolutely no requirement that it be on the front of the package. The idea here is to inform, not to demonize. It is not to make a judgment. It is just to inform for people who want to know. That simple, every product. That's one thing. Number two, it's got to be done on a federal level. It absolutely has to be done on a federal level. It simply doesn't make sense to be doing these kinds of things on a state-by-state basis. You are creating a patchwork of regulations that's going to be almost impossible for manufacturers to deal with, and it's going to be really, really confusing for consumers. Okay, so we're clear now. Everybody has to label, and it's going to be a federal mandate. Now, I do think that one of the things you have to do is you have to listen. If companies want to, if they want to put something on the front of the package, they can. But basically, what's going to happen by doing this is the industry cannot be accused of any kind of obfuscation. You're providing the information. If somebody cares, they can go do more research. If they don't care, well, it doesn't really matter. It's there. They're going to ignore it anyway. This is a very simple way to end the conversation. But of course, this is, life is never that simple. There are going to be people out there who say, well, we can't do that. There are organizations out there, and listen, the Grocery Manufacturers Association, they would rather support a lawsuit that will stop the states. They've just been lots of money trying to prevent states from having any kind of regulation than they would, say, going after a federal mandate. Okay, they'd rather do that because to them it sort of makes sense. I think that's nuts. I think it's absolutely crazy. They would rather support federal legislation. The only kind of federal legislation they're willing to support is going to be the federal legislation that says the states can't have their own regulations. Well, that's nuts. It doesn't make any kind of sense. And the thing is, what they're deathly afraid of is there's got to be a number. There's a number of states. I don't know whether it's 20 or 12 or 6, but there's a certain number. But once enough states have passed this regulation, they're going to have to do it. Simply because it's going to make sense. You might as well just label everything because why not? You got to do it for 6 states or 12 states or 20 states or whatever it happens to be. And they are deathly afraid of that number, and they'll do anything they can to prevent that from happening. Frankly, I got to tell you, I'm convinced that the only kind of federal legislation that the grocery manufacturers and the biotech companies would support, they'd love a law to pass Congress that says, what's a federal statute saying, well, guess what? If you want to sue either a manufacturer or a biotech company because of the impact of GMOs, you have to do it within 5 years of the original consumption. Now, that's the kind of law they could support because they'd be protected. They'd have absolutely no culpability and no responsibility for their product. It just doesn't make any kind of sense to me. We need a federal standard. Everything needs to be labeled. It has to be non-judgmental, and it's got to be on every packaging. And I'm really getting tired of the whining that I hear from some quarters that's saying, well, it's expensive to change packaging, it takes time to change packaging, it's confusing, yada, yada, yada. Here's the deal. If scientists discovered tomorrow that XYZ chemical or compound, which happens to be in 60% of, let's say, food products anyway, if they discovered that that compound was good for people's sex lives, it would take about 48 hours for manufacturers to change all their labels and slap that information on every product they made that's relevant. They can do it, they just don't want to. This isn't about GMOs, this is about money, and this is about wanting to control the flow of information. And here's the thing that the grocery manufacturers and the biotech companies have to understand. We don't live in a world anymore where you get to control the flow of information. It is bad business to try and control the information, because all it looks like is that you're trying to hide something. If you're out there, if you just provide the information in a non-judgmental, informational kind of way, it's much better for business. And I think what's going to happen is consumers have to start taking the attitude that, guess what? You try and control the flow of information, we're going to make it very bad for business for you. And that's not something that manufacturers can afford to have happen. Anyway, that's what's on my mind this Thursday morning. And as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.